everyone, and welcome to Solaris Japan, your go-to channel for quality figure reviews. Have you ever looked at a recently released scale and wondered, why are figures so expensive nowadays? Well, today we'll be answering that question by comparing two versions of the same Gothic Lolita Asuka by Kotobukiya, one from 2004 and one from 2020. You can already identify the newer figure from its box. It has sharper images, brighter colors, and a lot more detail. The first Gothic Lolita Asuka was released in 2004 with an MSRP of only 4,800 yen. And yet the 2020 figure had an MSRP of 12,800 yen, almost 3 times the price. So why is the newer version so much more expensive? First, let's talk materials. The 2004 figure was made of PVC only, while the more recent one is made from both PVC and ABS, adding strength and durability since ABS is stronger than PVC. The difference in material quality also affects the figure's appearance. The older figure had an oily sheen to it when we first unboxed it, so if you notice this too, don't freak out. This sticky coat happens when the plasticizers added to the PVC vaporize over time. Recent figure production has made great improvements on that front, so this plasticizer degradation is less likely with them. But you should still be careful where you display your figures, since direct sunlight and plastic don't mix well. Now, onto the overall sculpt. Both versions of this figure were based on an illustration by the mangaka Yoshiyuki Sadamoto, one of the founding members of the Gainax anime studio. One thing to keep in mind is that figure sculptors have had much more experience translating 2D anime characters to 3D figures full of life over the years. Older figures can sometimes look stiffer and less natural. You can really see this change between our two figures. Since the pose on the older one is so rigid, it looks like a 3D copy of the 2D illustration. Technically faithful, but lacking a sense of movement. However, the pose on the newer one is way more expressive and natural. Her arm bends a little, as if relaxed, and her slightly tilted head adds a lot more character. The older figure has a much simpler sculpt compared with those we see today. This is especially apparent in the folds of the fabric. The 2004 version has less defined folds and wrinkles. On the newer one, the fabric of her entire outfit flows much more realistically. For example, at the back of her skirt, they even show how the ruffles bunch as she sits. And it's not just the fabric that flows better in the newer version. Her hair does as well. The 2004 version's hair is basically a rectangle, with all the strands hanging straight down and hardly any shading for contrast. On the newer one, the hair falls so much more naturally. The ends of the hair are more defined than the 2004's rounded tips. The strands have a variety of widths, and there are even multiple layers to give it depth. This is actually a key difference between the two. The older one looks flat, as though it's been shaped from a single piece of plastic, while the newer one looks as though it's been pieced together layer by layer, which creates so much more dimension. Moving on to the face, the older one has a rather strange expression. It doesn't quite match any emotion. Here the paint suffers as well. Her skin lacks vibrancy, more on that later, and her lips are more defined, which makes her look like she's wearing lipstick, although the definition does match the original illustration better. But in 3D it comes off as very early 2000s Barbie. The newer one has the more typical anime figure face we know and love. They gave her a cute, questioning look, captured thanks to her large eyes and smaller mouth. Okay, we've been highlighting a lot of improvements in the new one, but we think there's something the 2004 figure did do better. The shine on her shoes contrasts well with the matte paint of her tights, which is a touch the newer one lacks. However, the rest of the 2004 figure feels incredibly flat when sat next to its updated counterpart, as it lacks the shading and highlights that recent figures use to simulate depth. The 2020 figure has so much more subtle variation in color. This is especially apparent in her brows and on her hair. Even her dress and tights have highlights to emphasize the stretch and folds of the fabric, made more visible by the clothing's new midnight blue color choice. And of course, the most noticeable difference is that the 2004 figure has an unnaturally tan, dare we say orange, skin tone, while the newer figure's skin is much paler, adding contrast to her dark outfit and red hair. From these two figures, we can really tell that the level of craftsmanship has improved. We're not equating the 2020 Asuka to Michelangelo's David or anything, but it's obvious more figure makers are devoting time to understanding things like anatomy, hair volume, and how different types of fabric fold. It's great that figure production has gotten better over the years, but we have to remember that without these older figures, we would never have achieved the gorgeous figures we have today. The 2004 Asuka walked so that her 2020 version could run. Finally, it's worth mentioning that it's not just figures that have gone up in price over the years. Everything from rent to gas has gone up, and unfortunately, figures aren't exempt. Thankfully, while figure prices have increased, we can clearly see that their quality has too. But what do you think? Was the glow up worth the cost? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this comparison helpful and want to learn more about figure pricing, check out our 2-part blog series on the topic. The link, along with the links to both figures discussed in the video, can be found below. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, hit the bell, and subscribe. And if you can't wait until our next videos for more awesome figure content, be sure to check out our TikTok and Instagram. This has been Alana with Solaris Japan. Until next time, keep collecting. Bye!